My name is Lizzie. I'm the Beachwatch manager at the Marine Conservation Society. So this is all to be going through how to run a beach clean and litter survey. Okay, so what we'll cover in the next hour. So I will go through how to plan your clean, so looking at good dates, times and locations, notifying, liaising with the landowner and filling out those kind of health and safety bits and pieces, how to mark out your clean, welcome your volunteers, what to bring on the day, how to record that litter data and how to submit that data at the end. And there should hopefully be a time at the end of this session for Q&A as well. So beach cleans are really critical now more than ever. I'm sure most of you will be aware, as with the diving that you do, just how much of a beautiful variety of marine life we have in the UK and how they are really susceptible to threats of litter through entanglement and ingestion. And with just the more items that we're producing, the threat can only get higher. So being able to do things like beach cleans and litter pickups are really important, so we can try and minimise that threat as much as possible. So I wanted just to start off to say a massive thank you for joining today. It's great to be able to chat to you guys about this programme and how to just to know that just by getting involved in Beachwatch, your beach clean litter survey will directly remove litter from UK beaches. It's also great for health and wellbeing benefits for volunteers. You meet like-minded people. You're knowing that you're making a really positive impact to the marine environment. It provides vital data for MCS to help us campaign to try and stop the litter getting there in the first place. And it allows us to understand what's happening, not just in the UK, but we collaborate with countries all over the world so we can monitor litter on a global scale. So just a massive thank you again for your interest. So I wanted to start off with what do we do with those litter results that we collect, the data that our volunteers are collecting. So we create a Beachwatch report each year, showcasing the litter items that were found from the year before. So we create and distribute an annual report, and the data is submitted nationally and internationally. So we have a big event in September that I'll mention later on called the Great British Beach Clean, and it's a global event where countries all over the world take part in a beach clean and litter survey and submit that to an American charity called Ocean Conservancy, and our data gets sent to them as well. So our monitoring our data is not just for the UK, but we also compare with countries in Europe, the EU, or countries within the EU monitor in the same way. And it's really great to really drive home public awareness campaigns and campaigns that can change laws to reduce the amount that we're producing and hopefully change public behaviour to stop the litter getting there in the first place. So I just wanted to highlight some of the stats that we can produce from the information provided by volunteers using our survey forms. So this is some of the data from last year. So in Scotland, we had over 3,000 volunteers take part in 2022. I'll just move my screen in case you can see that. So one of the things we picked up on in Scotland is in some hotspot areas, potentially the central belt of Scotland, over 30,000 wet wipes were collected in 2022, and the central belt of Scotland is seen as quite a high hotspot for sewage-related debris. This information is really important to us because we can really drill down into types of items that are being found in these areas, where the hotspots are, and then we can look at solutions and speak to the people that have the power and responsibility to try and stop it getting there in the first place. So things like the local government, Scotland government, Wales government, so we can, and also things like water companies, manufacturers, retailers. It really helps us to be able to draw a better picture of where these litter and the types of litter are being found. And then in England, we had over 8,000 volunteers take part, and we saw that 95% of the cleans that were done reported some level of drinks containers, that's plastic bottles, drinks cans and glass bottles. And that's something that we for a deposit return system is something that we really want to see across the UK, because this really does then reduce the amount of these items being found on our beaches, and it's clear that we're still finding them on the majority of the cleans we're doing, at least in England. In Wales, we are seeing some hotspots of things like cigarette stubs, which is really an interesting litter item that we were not sure why in some areas in Wales we're finding those hotspots, but it allows us to kind of work with other NGOs as well. So we work with Ash Wales to highlight the issue of cigarette stubs, the fact that there's plastic in them, and that obviously the issues they have with littering of those items. So our data can really provide a way for us to engage with the public and also manufacturers, retailers, governments, anyone who can really help affect the change to try and so we can start seeing a reduction of these items. So I wanted to go through, so that's just a quick overview of the data. We can do a lot with it, but I just wanted to also show you how that data is collected. So why do we do a 100-meter survey? So we are asking everyone to record it for the whole beach. Some beaches can be quite large, so we wanted to have a sample section. 100 meters is a really good representation because over 90% of the litter types you find in that 100 meters will be found on that beach generally. So it's a really great representation of that stretch, of that beach in particular. Having standard stretches means that we can compare beach to beach, county to county, UK country to UK country, because everyone's collecting it in the same way. Everyone uses the same litter recording forms as well. And regular surveys over time help us indicate trends as well. So we would really love volunteers to collect data throughout the year, ideally each season, so we can start looking at how litter compares from winter, spring, summer, autumn. So we would love for seasonal data as well as throughout the year. Okay. So let's get started. I'll go into how to plan your beach cleaner litter survey. So first off, you will create your volunteer account on our website. So I'm going to just move off the presentation for a moment and head to our website and show you how you create that account from the start. Second. So I'll go from the start from where you guys would like to go from. So from Google, Marine Conservation Society. And here's the home page here. And then you see the little icon of the person at the top right hand side. If you click on that, there's a way for you to log in, but at the bottom you can see create an account. So if you head to that one, you can then fill in your first name, surname, email address, create a password, and then there's a few extra details of info that we need. Just to clarify, rough age, make sure you're over 18 if you want to organise a beach clean, and then if you'd like to hear from us, how you would like to, for any e-news or latest information on campaigns and appeals and things. So, and then if you press submit, you then have an account with us. So you can log in with your email address and password going forward. So if it was to do it with myself, always the way it's going to happen. I thought that might. There we go. So it's worked now. So once I've logged in, here is my dashboard. So obviously it's hi Lizzie, and then any alerts, any new things happening with volunteering will appear on this top bit. We have a few ways to get involved. Obviously beach cleans is one of them. And then you have your beach clean events, any events that you're running, which I'll show you how to add later, will appear here. And your past survey data would also be here. And you can favourite stretches as well. So as I mentioned, it's 100 metres. And as we've been doing this since 1994, we have almost 30 years worth of data. Our volunteers have added lots of stretches over the years, and those stretches have data attached to them. So we don't move them once they've allocated a stretch to a beach. And so we have thousands of these all over the UK. So it's likely that if there's a beach you'd want to do, there's probably a couple of stretches already have been allocated to that one. And it might be that no one's running cleans there anymore, so you can add your events to them and continue adding data to those stretches. So as you can see here, you've got browse beach stretches. So before you even run cleans, add events, you might just want to search with what's available already, what's already on our system, and find those stretches that might be relevant to you. So you can type in a local town or postcode. So I'm going to go Weston-super-Mare, which is slightly close to where I'm from. I'm quite inland, but it is my sort of closest beach. And as you can see, they'll show you them stretches now. You can zoom in and the stretches will start appearing. So these are the ones that have been added over the years by our volunteers, and there's data attached to them. So it might be that these take an interest. So you can see the name of it here, but then you can see them listed below. You can either choose this stretch. If you want some more information, you can click on the page itself. But the main information shows you here. So the stretch, when it was last cleaned and when it was next cleaned. So that might be really helpful for you when you're trying to decide where you'd like to do your survey. If you know that it was only cleaned recently and then there's another clean coming up, you might choose a different stretch to one where there's much activity happening. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of what's going on. And as you can see, there's a heart here that you can click, and then it will go to your dashboard and it will be under your favorites. So you don't have to keep searching for it every time. You can just head to your favorites and the stretches that you do will be there. So those are, just wanted to show you where that is. So it's just a way for you to have a bit of a play, see what's there before you kind of decide which areas you would like to clean. If there's nothing there, if you looked on the map and the area you're really thinking of, there's no stretches, then you can add a new stretch to the system and then you can start adding data to it. We do have some how-to videos on the website as well to show you a few of those, but just so you know, don't worry if there's nothing there. You can always add a brand new stretch and then start collecting data which we wouldn't have had from that area before. I've gone to, so you created your account and you've searched for stretches. Next up is planning your preferred date and time and checking the tides. Okay. So checking the tides, again, with you guys, you're probably well aware of the tides and the importance of checking them. This is a photo taken by my colleague up near the Wirral with some cars who unfortunately got a bit caught out by the exceptionally high tide when they went to visit the beach earlier that day. So obviously just highlights the importance of checking tides on some, particularly some beaches where it can come right up to the back of the beach. So you might already have information and places to go when you check the tides. But if not, and you would like to look ahead of time, a couple of months ahead, there is a website that's free called Tides for Fishing, and it's a great one to look sort of projections a couple of months ahead for you to be able to plan your cleans in time. We do advise that ideally it will be done a couple of hours after high tide. We say this so you know that there's the tide will be receding and then it will be continuing to go out whilst you're cleaning. So it's not something that you then have to worry about with your volunteers as it's on its way out as your beach clean continues. However, it's not absolutely set that you have to do that. We just advise that as a if you can as a potential, as a preference. But if you know your beach really well and you know that you'll be completely safe doing that and you'll be off the beach in plenty of time, then it's okay to not have to stick to that rule. But if you're not familiar with the beach and it's your first time cleaning, then that's a good ballpark if you want to pick your date to do it when you're after a couple of hours after the high tide's gone. Next up, let's see if I can. So next up is to let the landowner know that you're doing your clean. So once you've got your date, we looked at the tide and you know which date and time you would like, then it's a good point to then contact the landowner. So this is usually the council. Most of the time, this will be the council that you'll be heading to, but it can sometimes be other ones like National Trust, RSPB, or privately owned. If you're not sure, the council is still the best people to go to because they might be able to direct you in the right place to who owns it. But again, it is usually the council. The reason you get in touch with them is to let them know that you're running a clean. Some councils do monitor and track the amount of activity beach cleans are going on. So they might be able to let you know if they know there's another beach clean happening that day, in which case you might want to choose to move it to a different location or a different date. They can also let you know if there's any particular events you might need to be aware of. One time I tried to plan my clean and I contacted the council and they said, did you know there's an air show on that day and there's thousands of people on the beach? So understandably, I thought maybe not best to try and do a beach clean with a packed beach. It probably wouldn't be safe or practical. So they can be really helpful in just understanding whether it's double checking it's okay to run that clean. It's also to make sure that you arrange the uplift of litter at the end. You want to make sure the bags aren't sat there next to bins. So So it's good to let them know. And each council is different on how they operate. Some beaches are really well stocked on bins and even skips. I do Brighton Beach quite a lot, and there's obviously, due to the nature of the beach being really busy with beachgoers, there's always bins that you can put the litter in afterwards. However, smaller beaches, quieter beaches, the council might want to know when your being clean finishes, and so they ensure that they do your area en route, or they might even come down after you're clean and pick up those bags of litter. Each council is different, but they will let you know what best to do, what is the best to do with them. And you can also ask them about recycling anyway, and what levels of recycling there are if you're not sure. So you can do that separating out afterwards as well. You can also check things like public toilets. You might be able to see on a map that there's a public toilet, but it's always good to check whether that will definitely be open, especially if you're doing any winter cleans. Just to sense check that it's still, if it's open. If not, they might be able to open it on that day for you and your volunteers. We do have a template email on our resources page on our website. So if you're not sure on how to start the email or what to write or what to include, we have a bit of a template that you can use, and you can completely tailor it to fit you or what you want to say. But hopefully that will help make sure you kind of include the main things you need to include. So sometimes they ask for a risk assessment and a public liability insurance. We have both these things that are downloadable from our website. A risk assessment, we filled in what the likely threats are and risks that might happen on a beach clean. So we're not expecting you to produce one completely from scratch. Hopefully that will include a lot of the risks you'll find, but there are ways that you can add a bit more on there. Our public liability insurance certificate is also on the website for you to share with them. So if you do your risk assessment and you provide that health and safety briefing at the start to your volunteers, which I'll explain a bit about in a moment, you are covered by a public liability insurance. And like I said, if you're ever unsure on who owns the beach, local council can usually help, but also you can contact us if you are stuck at all. So as I mentioned, keeping your volunteers safe. So our risk assessment, it provides a handy guide for keeping people safe on the beach. And some councils do like to see a copy of that when you get in touch with them. So again, you can download it from our website, and I'll show you an example here. So there's only a few things you need to fill in. It's the beach name, the date, who's completing the risk assessment. You can pop the high and low tides in there as well. And there's a few things to do on the day. So who's checking it on the day and signing it as well. Who's the first aider? You don't have to be a first aider, but if there is, you can write that down. But we do advise that you bring a first aid kit with you, so anyone who needs it can administer it themselves. Checking phone reception is really important, just in case you do need to make any emergency calls. So check that on the beach when you first arrive. If they haven't got signal, you might want to check the car park and other spots to see where you might have signal, just so it's good to know that beforehand in case you do need to use it. Always good to locate the local hospital as well, just so you know where that local one is, as well as the nearest defibrillator. Hopefully none of these things will happen, but it's always good just to know that these things are close by. But again, always contact emergency services if you do need any help with any volunteers. And then we just have some contact information for dead or injured animals. And then when you get to this section, it's about identifying who might be at risk, and then who is then responsible for making sure they're mitigating against it. So it'll be volunteers and likely members of the public are the ones that are at risk, unless you're working with young people or teachers. And then you can also then highlight yourself as Beachwatch organiser as the one who is looking after and making sure the risks are minimised. I wanted to highlight just a few for you that we've listed. So there's roads and slipways. So of course it's understanding the access to the beach and making sure the weather conditions and whether there's anything you just need to be careful of, or standing by the entrance to the beach to make sure people are being careful when they enter it and when they get onto the beach in case it is a bit slippery. Tides and currents, as I mentioned, of course, is a big thing to be cautious of, and make sure that your beach clean fits within the tides. Hazardous waste as well is another thing to be careful of. So dog feces, sewage, sharps and syringes and containers. So we've listed the ways to mitigate against those and make sure you keep everyone safe. Slips, trips and falls, of course. You've got cliffs, sand dunes, soft mud, soft sand and mud. So there's a lot of things there that people can just have a few accents over. So again, it's another thing to be cautious of and give that health and safety briefing at the start to make sure people know what to avoid. If it's cliff face, if they need to stay away from that, then let them know. I always tend to let people ask people to stay away from the soft mud and keep to the back of the beach. Things like that to mention in your briefing, just so that they're aware. Lifting and carrying heavy items, of course, you don't want to overload bags. You don't want people to cause any have any back injuries trying to lift anything particularly heavy. So just mention that in your health and safety briefing as well, that if there's anything that they can't lift, to please leave there, and you can always contact the landowner to let them know something needs removing. Extreme weather conditions is also important, so always look ahead of time to see what the weather is doing. Yellow weather warnings are also something I think I would say to be cautious and maybe consider whether you want to postpone. Gusts of wind, can be quite dangerous, as well as obviously very hot days. So it's just to be mindful of your volunteers, how long you're on the beach, making sure people got plenty of water and can go and get shade. So it's just another thing to think about and to mention to your volunteers when they get there as well, if there's anything that you might need to mention, especially like today or at the moment when it's hot weather. But do feel free to postpone your clean if you just don't think it's safe on the run up to it, if you think it's going to be really heavy winds or a really heavy rainstorm or thunder and lightning. Those types of things, if you don't think it's going to be safe, then feel free to postpone it. I'm sure your volunteers will much rather have that than have a sort of not pleasant experience with the types of weather that they might experience on the beach. Of course, and then also be careful with any animals they find dead or alive, including jellyfish, and to not touch them. So just to mention about some animals that they might find on the beach and just to be cautious of them. We've also mentioned about avian flu as well, just to see if they've got, obviously, to avoid touching or picking up any dead birds they find. And also things like aggressive dogs can also be a problem. A lot of beaches can have dog walkers, and most of the time it's absolutely fine, but it's just something to be aware of when you're on the beach with lots of volunteers. So we've listed those, and then each hazard that I mentioned, we've put a section on how you can reduce that risk and what to do if something happens. You don't have to read all this out to your volunteers. It's just a way for you to just have a read, make sure you're happy with what's listed, think if there's anything else you might want to add, and then what things would be relevant to you to read out to your volunteers at the start of the clean. So I always mention the weather, I always mention ties and sharp items. So I always have a separate container for any sharp items that are there, for like glass and nails. I don't ask them to put them in their bags in case they tear and potentially cut their legs as they're walking along. So I tend to have buckets or a separate sort of large container along the 100 meters, so people can just pop the sharp items in there and we can sort those out later. And then I also mentioned just leaving natural stuff on the beach, and also anything they're unsure of, or anything that looks a bit strange, just come and let me know and I can take a look. So those are the main kind of, and obviously with needles as well. So we ask people not to put needles in their bags. And one thing is that we check with the council on what they do with their needles and who do we contact if we find any on the beach, and that disposal route with the council. So again, it's just making sure that they don't pick anything up like that. So that's the risk assessment. I hope it doesn't look too daunting. We just tried to make sure that it had everything in there, so you don't have to think about absolutely every single risk, but do think about whether there's anything additional, and there is space at the bottom to add those in as well. So once you've done that, once you've contacted the council, you've sent over your risk assessment, and if they get back to you and say that's all fine, there's not a problem, and where to leave the bags and what to do with needles, you can then start publicising and adding your event. So if I head to the website, I will show you how to add a beach clean event to our system. So we do ask people to add their events. You could have a public event or a private event. So if you're just starting out and you just want to have it with your friends and family and you're running it for the first time, you can by all means run a private clean. And all that means is that we know it's happening. We get notified every time an event gets added, so we can see and check there's no clashes. But it means it's not being advertised on our website anywhere for people to sign up to. So it would just be for you and the people that you invite. However, if you would like to run a public one, that's great. There's always people checking out our website, really wanting to get involved and giving people a hand on the day. And it's a great way to meet like-minded people and people in your area who who just want to make the biggest impact they can on the day. So it's a really lovely time to, if you are confident, to do a public clean. And I'll show you how to run all those as well. So if you click on beach cleans, and then you click on organise a beach clean, it will show you the step-by-step process to do this. So it's setting your location, choosing your date and time, set up your beach clean event page, and then it shows you that summary before you submit. So you say you agree to terms and conditions. These terms are just saying that you would do a risk assessment, health and safety briefing, that you are just you are a volunteer and you're not acting on behalf of any kind of political party or anything. It's completely neutral, and that you're just running this for that. So, but by all means do have a read through them, but there's only just a few bullet points. If you click I agree and start organising, first part of the process is location. So you may have already got a stretch in mind. So like for myself, there was one in Weston-super-Mare. I could do search. This comes up again like it did when you went to search for those stretches. It's the same thing. You see the map as well. I hearted this one, so this is probably the one that I chose. So you can put to favourite on my dashboard. So you can click choose this stretch. Add a date and time. So you've already planned it in. So say mine is going to be in August in 2 months' time. Start of the clean, I'll say is 10:30, and I'm going to run it for about 2 hours. Most beach clean and litter surveys run for, they'll probably take about an hour to hour and a half to collect all the data, depending on your level of volunteers and the amount of litter you have on the beach. But if you include the briefing and handing out kit, and obviously if you want to give time for people to do a general litter pick outside the 100 metres afterwards, you can of course add that time in as well. So here's the information, and then here's the beach clean name. So you can call your event whatever you would like. If you're a BSAC group doing it, we'd always love to track how many BSAC groups are getting involved, especially at the back of the webinar. So if you want to call your event something with BSAC in it, that's great. So you could just do BSAC Community Beach Clean. Here is the bit where we ask if you want it private. It's unticked at the moment. If you would like it public, and you're happy for volunteers to come along to find it on the website and sign up, then you can keep that left unticked. If you would like to just keep it private, especially if you're just doing your first one, then you can tick private there. So we will get notified in the Beachwatch team. We will check the event. We'll make sure there's no clashes. We'll approve it, but it won't be shown on the website for people to see and sign up to. But you can still put the details like meeting location, because you can send this, once it's private, you can send a URL link to direct people. So if you've got friends and family or a small community group that you would love to come along to your clean, but you still want to keep it private, you can email them the URL link and they can create an account and sign up to that event. They can see it because they've been sent the URL link. No one else can see it unless they've been sent that link. So people can still sign up to your private clean, but only if you send them the URL link to it. So do add your meeting location if you are going to still share out your event in some way. You can add a maximum number of volunteers. This is important when you've got a public clean. You might only have enough equipment, or you might only feel comfortable with a certain amount of people. So if you want to cap it at say 20 people, you can pop that in there. The detail section is it allows you then just to have any more information you wish to convey. Is it an event as part of something? Do you need anyone to bring any equipment? So if you want them to bring gloves, garden gloves are really great for litter picking because they're quite sturdy and durable. So you might want to ask them to bring along some gloves. It's also a nice time, and we try and encourage people to mention about accessibility, and just so people are aware of what's there when they get there. So how to access the beach. Is there steps down? Is there a ramp down to the beach? What's the beach substrate like? Is it pebbly? Is it sandy? Where's the nearest car park? Where the nearest toilets are? So it's just allowing people who have various needs to make informed choices on whether they feel that event is right for them. So if you have any of that information to hand, the detail section of the event is a really nice place to put it in. We then have social network events and messaging groups you can link in. We do have a school-friendly tick box. So this is for if you are happy for a teacher to come down and bring their school children or class down to help you with the beach clean. then you can tick school friendly, and it just allows teachers to know that you're happy for them to sign up to. And then we just have some images that you can choose for your event. So I'll pick the Beach Clean flag one for now. And below that, you've got the details. So we do recommend, especially if you're running a public event, to have some form of contact details on the event for volunteers to contact you on should they need to. It's up to you what level you would like to provide. It could just be an email address or just be a phone number, or it could be both. We would advise at least one, because you never know on the day, volunteers might need to contact you if they're having issues getting there or they can't find you for whatever reason. It's really important at least having that number. So we encourage you to provide at least one if you've got a public event, if possible. But we want to make sure we know which what to provide on the event, and if you're happy for that to be shown. So at this point, if you can write the email address that you would like to be shown, it can be different to your account. This is just for your event specifically, but you can write the email address that you would like people to email you on, and a phone number that might be good, especially if it's the phone number you're going to be using on the day. So for me, I'll write my email address and my phone number. I'll pop in some details here. Very brief, just because it won't let me go through to the next stage unless I fill that in. And then it asks you if you're happy for your email address and phone number to be shown. So again, we just want to double check, are you happy for that to appear on the event for volunteers to see and to contact you if they need to? So if you tick that, the next one is asking if you're happy for media representatives to contact you. This doesn't happen often, but sometimes a journalist might get in touch with us and say, hey, I'd love to know what beach cleans are happening in Weston-super-Mare, anything happening in that area. We can check the events, and if you tick that you're happy to be contacted, then we can share your contact details with them and let you know that you might be in touch. A journalist might get in touch, and normally they just want to chat to you about why you're doing the clean that day, why is it important, what you're finding, and those types of questions. But if you want to have any information or questions about doing media interviews, then us and the comms team are all more than happy to chat to you about that. Again, you can leave that unticked if you just would rather not. That's absolutely fine. So I think that should be everything. Hopefully I've filled it all in correctly. Yes. So the next bit, it will be your summary. So you can just see then what's there. So you've got your date and time there. It mentions the risk assessment and landowner permissions. And then it says what you need on the day. I'll mention that in a moment. And then you can confirm you've understood the information about doing a risk assessment and contacting the landowner, and you can submit your event. So on your dashboard, I'll go through because I've got a few events happening. You'll see here, I've just done the BSAC Community Beach Clean, and it says pending review. That's because it goes to the Beachwatch team. We get notified in our Beachwatch inbox, and we just have a check over it, and then also just check against other events that are being added, just to make sure there's no clashes. And if there is, we'll try and sort of sort it out to make sure that events aren't happening at the same time. But usually it's all okay. So then we'll just approve that. And then what you'll see is it then come up with the one on the left here where it says organiser. That means it's been approved and it's ready to go. Once it's passed your survey, it will be greyed out like my one on my right here, and it says awaiting survey. So as you can see, 22nd June, so I did a beach clean today on Brighton. So it's still awaiting my survey data because I haven't quite submitted it yet. So that's what will happen there. So if I click on that one now, it will say add survey data. So I'll show you that in a bit later on, but just so you know, that's how you get to add your data afterwards. So that's your event all added. So now it's time to look at advertising your event. So if it's a public event and it's now on our website, hopefully lots of volunteers will see it, but you can share it on social media. And we have resources on our resources page, things like an editable poster. So you can add in those key information and then print it out and share it around, or save it as PDF and share it around in emails and stuff like that. But it's a great way to get your event out there. So heading up to your clean, what do you bring on the day? Now you've put the event up, you started promoting it. What do we make sure we have? So we've got some essentials and some things that might be a good idea to bring. The essentials would be the survey form, of course. We do have a litter recording app, which I'll mention in a moment. and you can download that from the event. So where it says add survey data, there's also a button that says download the app. It's not on the App Store. It acts like an app. So you just download it from a website, it saves you home screen. It's the same login that you created, and your events will be there if you're added it, or if you've signed up to someone else's, it should appear there. You can start adding data to it when you when the clean starts. Otherwise, you can print out some paper forms. I always recommend having those survey forms on you anyway, even if you hope your volunteers use the app, because inevitably something, you know, it's always good to have that backup in case people would prefer to use paper forms. Bring your risk assessment, and always good to have the public liability insurance on you. And then the good idea to bring would be our welcome briefing, if you just want a bit of help with some of the key points to mention. We have a photo ID guide that I'll show you in a moment, which you can always slide is it's just a couple of A4 sheets with pictures of some items and where to record them. You can always put that under your recording form, and so people can flick and just have a quick look if they're spotting anything and not sure where to put it. Parental form and photo consent forms. So part of our insurance is that anyone under the age of 16 has to be with a parent or guardian. You're not responsible as the organiser to look after them. It's on the parent and guardian too. So we do have a parental consent form just for them to fill out quickly, to say that, you know, some details, and that they are the ones that are responsible for the children they're bringing along. And you can dispose of those a week or so after the clean. That's absolutely fine. Photo consent forms is up to you if you wish to take photos, because if you share them on social media, it's just nice to make sure that those people are happy for them photos to be shared wider. So we do have photo consent forms if you wish to use them, and it's just so people could just write a signature saying they consent for their photos to be used, and then you can, you know, take those photos and share them wider. But it's just there if you wish to. If you don't wish to take photos, then that's absolutely fine. You don't need the forms either, but it's just there if you would like to, and it's just nice to make sure those volunteers have the option to opt in or opt out of being in any photos. The type of equipment to bring on the day. So it doesn't have to be a lot that you can bring when it comes to litter picking. The essential things are obviously bin bags, gloves. Like I mentioned, garden gloves are really good. They're incredibly sturdy. A small first aid kit. If you've got clipboards, or if you've got just a book or something to lean against the survey, that's great. Obviously, if you're using the app, you don't need to worry about that. And a collection box for collecting those sharp items like glass or nails. So, and if you've got a bucket or you've just got a large container, those are always great to use for people to put those in instead of in their bin bags. Again, the council might be able to help with litter picking equipment. They might have some litter pickers and bags and gloves that you can borrow with them. You can also, so litter pickers if you can. Again, the council might have some. Weighing scales, so it's not essential. You don't have to use the weight, but if you do have anything like luggage scales, they're quite good to use. Or sometimes you can find them for a couple of quid online. Reusable bags if you can. If you've got anything sturdy, it's always great to reduce the amount of single-use bags we're using. But if not, any bin bags, if people come back, if you decant them into bags, and so you're using as fewer as possible, then that would be great. If you do have a high-vis jacket or anything just to highlight yourself, then always good, but again, it's not necessarily essential for you to bring that. And then if you've got anything that could act as a marker for your 100 meters, so it doesn't have to be anything fancy like flags. It could just be if you've got any bamboo sticks or anything that might just add as a little marker, just to say that's the end of their, you know, where to finish doing the recording. So it's the day of your clean. You've got all the equipment ready. We advise arriving about 30 to 40 minutes before your volunteers, just so you can park up, check the toilets, check the access to the beach, look over your risk assessment, see if there's anything happening on the beach that you might need to just highlight to your volunteers when they arrive, and of course pace out your 100 meters and sort out your kit. As your volunteers arrive, give them a nice welcome, do a bit of a head count when everyone's there, and ask them to fill in any consent forms you wish to. And then that's the opportunity to highlight any hazards, so you can introduce yourself. And we have a bit on our briefing on what to say about MCS if you want to talk about what the Marine Conservation Society does. You can also talk about BSAC as well in your group and what you guys will be doing. And then you can then talk about the health and safety bits, just mention the hazards, mention some of the things that I highlighted earlier. And then you show them the recording form and how to fill that in. and I'll show you that in a moment. And then you ask people to get into groups of around 2 to 3. We don't want it too big, because if the person that's recording the data, if they have too many volunteers coming at them with litter, it's a little bit overwhelming. So keeping it to smaller groups is better. So someone will have the recording form, the others will have the litter pickers and bag, and they go along as a team. And every time they pick something up, they head to the person with the recording form, they tally it down, and then they pop it in the bag, and they do that as they go along. It is the quickest way of doing it. Some groups might want to collect everything and then record it. It will take a little bit longer to do that. They'll have to probably finish their clean a little bit early to count all the litter in their bag. It can take a lot longer. So we always advise count as you go along. It will be quicker in the end. As I said, this is our briefing here. So this is our template sort of generic briefing, where you can just have a read and then pull out any bits you might want to talk about. So introductions, the issues of litter, about Beachwatch as a program if you wish to introduce it, and then we talk about how to record the data, and then also the risks and some of the health and safety bits you might want to mention. And again, this is on our guides and resources. So the litter form itself, how to fill it in. So pick up every little bit of item that you find and record it by tallying it against that litter item that's listed. Everything from the last high tide mark to the back of the beach. Make sure your volunteers don't pick up any sharp objects, and make sure they put it in a safe box if they do find any. And also keep the natural stuff on the beach. So driftwood, shells, seaweed, all those natural things, lovely, should stay on the beach. It's only sort of the machined wood and all the man-made objects are the things that should be removed. So this is the litter form itself. So it looks quite daunting when you first look at it. It is a lot of items, but you won't find everything on that beach. You'll go back to the same items once you've started recording it, and it will get easier and easier. First 5 minutes is probably how long volunteers take just to familiarise themselves with the survey form. After that, I usually find that they're away and they're good. So just to show you, we have grouped the survey form in what the item is mostly made out of. So we have plastic and polystyrene. It's the largest one along here, the big band along the top. These 3 top columns are plastic and polystyrene. 80% of the list that we find in the UK is made out of plastic and polystyrene, so it's unsurprising that this is the largest group on our form. We then have other items that are mostly made out of either rubber, or they're made out of cloth, paper and cardboard, wood, metal, glass, pottery, and then we have a sanitary and medical section. Sanitary section is all the stuff that unfortunately gets put down the toilet instead of in the bin. So your cotton bud sticks, your wet wipes and period products. So those are all in the sanitary section. Medical, we have things like pill packets, PPE litters now on there, and syringes and needles. So people tally against each item. It's alphabetized for each material. So plastic and polystyrene, you've got bags, you've got bottles, you've got caps and lids, you've got cups, fishing gear, polystyrene pieces. So we go down to the really, really small bits, 0 to 2.5 centimeters. We do have a ruler along the bottom as well to help with identifying the sizes. We do the same for plastic fragments, so the hard bits of plastic we also go into pieces. Cigarette stubs is in plastic because it has the plastic in the cellulose and the filter. So if people find cigarette stubs, do head to the plastic category. And then we do have an other section for each material. So if it's not on the list or they're not sure, they can write what it is under other and specify how much they're finding. The box at the end is when they add up their final tally at the end, and that will help you when you collate it. If you can encourage them to just add up the tally against each item, it will help you a bit more when you come to add up on all the recording sheets. So look for what the material is mostly made out of. If it's more than one, then go with the majority. Pick the closest material you can find with the closest description. If it doesn't fit anywhere, like I mentioned, add to other. And we do have some how-to training videos on our website as well, short bite-sized how-to, and we do cover some stuff about types of litter that you can find. This is our litter ID guide that I've just mentioned. So these can be under your recording forms as well, that people can have a look over. Again, it is listed into same as the survey form, so plastic and polystyrene at the start, and it's listed in the same order as you find them on the form. So people can look at these photos and see where they might go if they can identify it. and we have it for every single material, and then some tricky items at the bottom as well that people might find and are not quite sure where they fit. So hopefully this will help your volunteers to locate it, and also yourselves as well. If you want to print this out, especially if you're doing it for the first time, you might want to head down to the beach and just use the ID form and see what you're finding on your local beach, and see if you know where to try and find it on the form before, maybe even before you start doing an official beach clean litter survey, just so you feel like you're comfortable with the survey form and the types of litter items you're finding on your beach. The app. So this launched, I think, September 2021. So it's only just over about a year and a half old, and it's purely used to collect data on the time. So it's not used to do all the pre-ep that I mentioned about stretches and adding events. That's all done on the website. This is to purely collect the data on the day. So your volunteers, if they've signed up to the event, public or private, they have to sign up to the event to be able to use the app. Sign up to that event, download it from that event onto their home screen, and they can log in with their usual login. The event will be there. As soon as it clocks over to the time your clean starts, so say it's 10:30, a button will appear that says add survey data. That won't be shown previous until your clean starts. So no data can be added to your event before you start it. Volunteers can go along. They don't need to use data, so they can turn that off whilst they're collecting the litter. They do need a bit of connectivity just to load it, but they don't need it whilst they're cleaning. It will store it on their phone, and then once they've got connectivity again, they can submit it. But if you are doing it in kind of an open area that does have Wi-Fi or data, then they can do it then there on the beach at the end of your clean. When they log in on the app, it's listed on, again, what the items are mostly made out of. So you have the plastic and polystyrene, cloth, paper, wood. They could do a drop down which lists the items, and they click which one they find, and it will start listing those items. They don't have to keep searching for it every time. They can just tap plus and just keep adding to that existing item. They can search for it as well on the top, like it mentions here. It says fish, and then it comes up with fish and nets and fishing gear. And they can start adding it as they're going along. And then they can submit it at the end, and then you will see when you go to your event at the end, when you go to submit your data, you will see who submitted via the app. And then if everyone's used the app, all you need to do your end is go to the website after the clean and submit the summary information like total volunteers, total bags, total weight, if you know it. Submit that, it will add it all together and submit it into our database straight away, and then you will get a summary, which I'll show you in a moment. So it just reduces the kind of time on your end to collate all the paper forms and submit it. But again, people might not feel comfortable using the app. I always have paper forms on me. Sometimes some volunteers are, and they will use the app. Sometimes I might have half and half, and I'll give paper forms to the other. I'll show you, but you can submit it all, and it all gets sent in as one survey at the end as well. So after you clean, ensure your volunteers have added up, like I mentioned, the final tally for each item. You can weigh the litter if you've got weighing scales. Make a note of total bags, and take the rubbish to the agreed drop-off point. And then you can just have a big thank you to your volunteers. Thank them for attending, for helping them collect the data. You can let them know how they want to get involved with you guys if you're a BSAC team and you want people to get involved in what you do, or let them know about the Marine Conservation Society work and the campaigns we're running, and how if they want to sign up to our e-news, they'll get more updates on the projects we're running. So just to give them a bit of a thank you for getting involved, and saying that you'll be sharing the results with them afterwards if they've signed up to the event. So submitting your results. So you've got all the data, you've headed home, you've had a nice cup of tea or an ice cream if the weather is nice, and you can then collate the forms or submit the summary if everyone's used the app. So you collate all the forms into one. We do have a summary form, or you can just use another recording form to tally up, add up everything for each item. And then you log back in the website, and I'll show you now how you can submit those results. So once you've got one sheet that has everything on it from what was collected in total, you can head to your beach. And as I said, when it said awaiting survey, you can click on here and it says add survey data. So you can head here and it says to check volunteer submissions. It has 0 participants, so I had no one on my clean using the app today. But if they did, you would see a little avatar with their name. So if you knew 3 groups use the app and you have 3 avatars of people's accounts, you know that everyone submitted the data. And then you can just click next So you can say that this is your own survey. So this data, the date, time, and duration is taken from the event. If it's altered, so if I only now did say an hour and a half or 2 hours, I can amend the time. Or if I started a bit later, you can amend the time as well. So we want to know how long when you started the survey and how long it was, so we know the start and end of your survey of recording. The length that you did, like I said, it should be 100 meters. However, if you have a very tiny bay and it's not even 100 meters, or if you had so much litter, it just wasn't feasible, we can accept something a bit lower, but we would like it close to 100 meters as possible. So it's robust, especially when we're standardizing the data. We can't accept anything less than 10 meters, but as close to 100 as possible. So I think hopefully for most beaches, 100 is feasible. There might be just a few reasons why there's some that wouldn't be possible. Mentioned how many volunteers did the survey specifically. If you had a big group come, which I've had before, I sometimes felt it's best to split it up. So I sometimes might go, okay, I've got 80 people here. I'm going to have 20 people do the survey and 80 people do a general litter pick. That feels a bit manageable for me to then work and help with the volunteers who are collecting the data. If that was the case, you can put 20 people did the survey and 60, and we have here a number of volunteers that didn't take part in the survey, so you could put 60. So it's important for us to know how many people actually did the survey recording specifically. So it's only if you had different groups doing different things that you would split it out. And then you would put how many bags, the weight, and if you know the width from the last high tide mark to the back of the beach, you can pop that in there as well. Again, additional length. So if people walked another 200 meters and did a general clean afterwards, you can write that in there. If you know what the weather was like ahead of the event, so if it was the wind and the wind strength and the sea state, if you do know it on the run up to the event, then you can pop that in there. But again, you don't need to put and think if you're not sure. Any factors that influence the survey. So that is if you knew that there was a huge winter storms that had just happened and lots more microplastics now on the beach than usual, then you can write that in there. Or if you know that there was a big beach party the night before and there's lots of litter from that, you can pop that in there. Or if you find out there was actually a litter pick just happened maybe a day or two before that you weren't aware of, then you can pop that in there as well. So it's just so you can say there were some influences that probably affected the level that we found of litter that day. But if you don't know, there's nothing in particular, then you can leave that blank. Did you find any hazardous or anything that might pose affect volunteers in the future? So this is just, did anything happen that we need to be aware of, especially for this stretch? Anything that was, and did an incident occur, or was it just a near miss? We really want to make sure that our volunteers are safe and that we provide enough safety information to them. So understanding what's happening on the ground is really useful to us. So if anything did happen, it's not a problem. We would just like to know. We can chat to you about it and see if there's any way we can make things easy for the volunteers to avoid that type of thing in future. So it's just there if anything happens. Then it says, did you record any survey data using paper forms? So if everyone used the app, you can just say no and press submit. The data from the app and your summary information you've just listed there will come together and be submitted into our database, and you will instantly get a summary report. So that's all done. So that's why using the app can be quite quick, because if you just fill this in on the website, it would take a couple of minutes, press submit, and you're done. I sometimes do it from my beach if I've got connectivity. If I know everyone's submitted the data, I can quickly check on my phone on the website. I can use my phone just to fill in the last information, press submit, and I left the beach with the data submitted. I don't even have to do anything when I get home, which is great. However, if you have used paper forms, that's absolutely fine. Or if you've done half and half, with half using the app and half using the survey forms. So if you've got any paper to submit, press yes, and you get the items that appear. So we said, do you find anything traceable? We ask people on the app if they have, but we ask you here if you've got any paper forms. So anything from different countries, or that would be really interesting to know if anything was particularly traceable that you found. Any oil, tar, or any liquid pollutants? Hopefully not, but we just ask that question in case. And then here's the list of items from your survey form. Again, in that same order, plastic and polystyrene, and then you've got your bags and all in alphabetical order. So this is when you can add the totals in. So from all the survey sheets you've added together. So you might have found 12 bottles. If you didn't find anything, you can leave the boxes blank. You might have found 56 plastic caps and lids, 120 cigarette stubs. That's unfortunately not uncommon. So you just make your way down and fill in the totals for the ones that you found. And then here's the other section. So we do need individual items that we found specifically. So we would ask our volunteers to specify what they're finding. So it could be that you found 12 cable ties, because we don't have that on the list. You might find one phone case. And then you just make your way down for what's been listed by the volunteers. And then you carry on. So that's rubber, 2 balloons. You might have found some clothing. So you might have found some cardboard, newspapers and cigarette packets. You might have found maybe a couple of paper straws. We don't have that on the list. So you could put paper straws, corks and lolly sticks. So again, just make your way down and add where you found those items. So you could put glass bottles, then you've got pottery, sanitary. So we might find some cotton bud sticks and some wet wipes. So make your way down, add everything in there, and you press submit at the end. Then you instantly get a thank you, and it will show you a link to your survey results. I won't submit this because it's all incorrect data and it'll go into the database. So I'll go back to my dashboard and I'll show you an event that has data in it for you so you can see. Well, actually, so I'll do this one actually that I've done recently. So this is what you'll see. So as soon as you press submit from an app or from paper forms, or from, if it was an event that did both, as soon as you press that submit from the summary information, you get sent this. It will instantly come up, and there's pie charts to show you the materials of what those items are made out of. So the beach clean I did last week, there was 48% was plastic and polystyrene, 18% was paper and cardboard, 9% was wood, 15% was metal, and 7% was glass. You can see the average per 100 meters there, which is the unit we use to track kind of what's happening across the UK. You can then look at sources. The sources that we do are public litter. So those are the things that people use when they're out and about. So bottles and drinks cans and glass bottles and straws and sandwich and sweet wrappers and those types of things. We list them in public litter. We've got fishing litter, shipping, sewage related debris, fly tipping, medical, and non-source. And non-source are the pieces. So the stuff we can no longer identify, that goes into non-source. So of course they obviously do have a source, but we just can't identify them anymore, unfortunately. So here, 57% of the clean I did was from the members of the public, at least, because obviously there's still 41% that was just pure pieces that we didn't know what that used to be. You can then see your summary data in here. So this is everything that you typed in. So you can have another check. But that's your data. You can then save it as a PDF. And then you can send that to your volunteers. So you can email them afterwards, thanking them again for taking part and sending them the results so they can see collectively what they did that day. You can then take screenshots of course, that to put on social media. You can send it to local council, MPs. If there's anything in particular that's interest, you can share it far and wide. And it's just a great way to be able to highlight the litter that you're finding. So that's basically all the way through. I hope that sounds okay and not too daunting. I just wanted to highlight again the Great British Beach Clean. So we collect data all year round, but we do have a fantastic event in September this year, running from the 15th to the 24th, where we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of beach cleans happening around the UK, all in September. It runs over International Coastal Cleanup Day, which will be on the 16th of September, and we get as much data as possible. So then we do the results from that afterwards as well. So we highlight what was collected in those 10 days, but also we send all that data over to Ocean Conservancy in America, and they then write what was found globally over the same time frame. So you are taking part in something that the whole world is doing at the same time. So it's a global movement to monitor our litter levels. And so we know what's happening globally, and then we know what we should be doing to try and reduce the amount that we're finding across the world, because we are one ocean, as you know. And so everything that goes in there is affected across the world. It's a great event to take part in. And it's also a great time to start thinking about it. As it's June, it gives you time to have a think about maybe trialing a beach clean, having a go with collecting the data, and then adding your event for September and giving it a go and taking part in this event. So again, just a massive thank you for listening. I hope that sounds okay. I'm going to check the chat now and the questions. So hopefully we've done it in and just over exactly an hour. So great. So we've still got those 15 minutes just to go through and answer any questions you have. But just to remember that we are always here. My team are incredible and are always happy to answer any questions you have. Email, phone, video call. We have an email address, beachwatch@mcsuk.org. So if you only need any support along the way, do get in touch. As I mentioned before, this video is recorded, so you can watch it back at any time. But we have already produced some bite-sized how-to training videos. So there's a couple of minutes on how to add your event, how to add a new stretch, how to record the data, how to look at some of those litter items and where to put them, how to submit the data, how to use the app. So there's a handful of them there that you can just ping to whenever you want to just watch something in particular that you might need support on. But again, we're always here to help. So thank you again. I will stop sharing a sec. See if I can stop sharing. There we go. I'll pop to the chat. So apologies for the delay in. I've got some questions. Yes, I'm more than happy, Simon, to share the slides with you as well. Again, this is recorded, but I'm happy to send the presentation onto you. That's no problem. I'll just make a note of that. So as Simon says, just to clarify, we clean as much beach as we like, but we record just the stretch. So yes, what I tend to do is that I start off with a survey. So I ask the volunteers to do the 100 meters first. Again, it probably takes about an hour, sometimes 40-45 minutes, depending on the level of litter items you've got or how many volunteers you have. Once that's all done, if the volunteers feel that they've cleaned everything and it looks really clean and there's nothing else to pick up, you can take in the survey forms and then you can ask people to head up the beach and just do a general litter pick and get as much off the beach as possible. Or if you have a really large group, like I mentioned, you can split it with some doing the survey, which you can help them with, and then you can send people off to do a general litter pick as well. It's just how works best for you. I will just go up the chat for a moment. Do we sell litter pickers? So we don't personally sell them, but we do have relationship with Helping Hands that do provide litter picking equipment, and you can get a discount as well. So I can send that on. But if you head to Helping Hands, they do sell some litter picking equipment. Okay. And MCS tabards. I'll see how much we've got in stock. We do have a few, so I'll see. But yes, unfortunately, we don't have that many. But we'll see if there is an interest. I'll see if we've got any that we can send you. We're just sort of finally revisiting how much stock we've got of those. But yes, if there is an interest, we can have a look to see how much we've got to send out. Is there any other questions at all on that? Yes, happy for it to go on the BSAC website. That's no problem at all. And happy to share the link to the how-to videos as well, so people can jump to those short bite-sized ones if they just want to look at something in particular that they're doing. So I can share both of those. Thank you, Mary. That would be great. Lovely. Does anyone have any other questions or anything to? No problem, Simon. Thanks for your interest. But like I said, yeah, any questions, happy to help. We're really thrilled to have people interested in litter picking and citizen science. It's really important now more than ever that we collect that data. And we it's 30 years this year. So we'll be September, our Great British Beach Game will be the 30th data set we will be obtaining. So it's really exciting to have that legacy data. So really great that you guys are keen to get involved, and we're happy to help in any way. Thanks everyone. Okay, I'll leave that there then if there's no more questions. But I'll do some follow-up comms, and I know Mary will send some comms out as well to all BSAC members. So yeah, just a massive thanks again for everyone who attended. It was lovely chatting to you all, and yeah, always here if you've got any questions.